By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? Or not? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead. You tell me when it gets boring. Okay.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at CD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we have to discuss probably the greatest victory of the Supreme Court in Donald Trump's favor that has DNC lunatics scrambling right now. They have officially put an end to the judicial tyranny that Trump has been dealing with as it pertains to nationwide injunctions. And that comes off of the back of Donald Trump's original executive order on ending birthright citizenship. So what does that all mean? Well, that means this. Right now, as we speak and as I record in this moment, technically speaking, yes, birthright citizenship has 100% been stripped. It is no more in this moment. And today is a great day. All these DNC lunatics are scrambling because they cannot participate in judicial tyranny anymore. They can't do it, meaning those states that didn't challenge Trump's executive order on ending birthright citizenship are now free to implement it, effectively ending birthright citizenship in their state. But then that creates a new conflict that we're going to try to unpack a little bit more as we move forward. You see, because in a place like California, where they're obviously challenging it, if an illegal immigrant child is born here and receives his citizenship, does that citizenship transfer over to, let's say, a state like Texas? Or is his citizenship not recognized if he goes over to Texas? Like I said, we'll try to unpack that a little bit more. That's something that everybody's trying to figure out right now, especially DNC lunatics, because they are scrambling, and I love it. But first, let's look at this quick clip here. Then I want to go through a New York Post article. Then I want to go through a couple of other clips afterwards. But let's go through this right now. I just want to watch this. We could all enjoy this together before I give you a quick summary of how everything really breaks down in terms of what's really going on. Because understand as well also, the Supreme Court did not rule on the merits, right, of birthright citizenship, meaning whether or not it's constitutional. Technically, it is still in the Constitution as we speak also. So that's not what they judged in this moment. They just stated that these Supreme Courts, or that these federal courts, right, that are doing these nationwide injunctions can't do what they're doing to stand in the way of Trump, right? But we're going to get into the details of that shortly. Let's just have a good laugh at the expense of MSNBC because boy, oh boy, they are big mad, big mad. Let's jump into this video next.
I just want to note the Democratic appointees' strong dissents in this case. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson calls the court's decision an existential threat to the rule of law. Justice Sotomayor's dissent says no right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates. She calls the court complicit in a grave attack on our system of law. The reality is the Supreme Court's Republican justices took away lower courts' single powerful tool, the most powerful tool for reining in the Trump administration and holding them accountable to the law.
Cry harder, cry harder. She's literally upset, and she's explaining to us right now that they are so mad that the Supreme Court took away the ability of DNC activist judges to engage in judicial tyranny. Once again, as I've stated so many times, the people that were hollering the most about saving democracy, protecting democracy, oh my God, Trump is going to be tyrannical this entire time. They were talking about themselves, ladies and gentlemen, and the tears are flowing. The tears are flowing. Now let's get into like kind of the specifics of what actually happened today, right? And then we're going to go through a couple of other video clips because things could get a little confusing. Wait a minute, there's a victory. Technically, yes, birthright citizenship is over with, but it's still in the Constitution. They didn't rule on the merits of it. What's really going on today? Okay, well, let me help you with this understanding, right? So let's come over here first. Let me move this video off the screen. We're going to come into this article. So Trump scores major win in birthright citizenship case as Supreme Court curbs nationwide injunctions. So what does that mean? Well, here's what this means, right? And I strongly suggest you guys to start doing this as well. Remember when people used to say, Google is your friend? Well, ladies and gentlemen, AI is your friend. Okay. And I'm going to start doing this more often after I read these articles, and just have the AI, run me a quick summary breakdown so that we can really be more succinct with understanding what's actually happening. Yes, AI is your friend. So here are the key takeaways. A Supreme Court ruling 6-3. The court decided that lower federal courts likely lack authority to issue nationwide injunctions to block executive actions across the board, marking a significant win for President Trump. Case at issue. The ruling stems from legal challenges to Trump's executive order 14160 issued January 20th of 2025, which redefined birthright citizenship, restricting it to children born to at least one U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Multiple district courts had blocked that order nationwide. Can somebody please explain to me what's wrong with that? That just sounds like common sense. He said at least one of the parents has to be a citizen. How is that a bad thing? How is that a negative thing? Right? This is not supposed to be a get out of jail free pass for those who are illegal and they have children together in this country. When the man and the woman are illegal, they give birth to a child in this country, but the child gets to be a citizenship. And then they want to use that as a get out of jail free pass and say, oh my God, you can't deport me because it's family separation. No. This was never meant to be a get out of jail free pass, right? That's not what that was for. And I believe that Trump is being very fair when he's saying at least one parent has to be a citizen. Come on, man, at least one, right? Remember when Joe Biden used to say that? Come on, man. Come on, man. At least one parent has to be a citizen, right? And then you have what's called, I believe it's called birther tourism. Many of you have heard of this. It's something that I've actually heard about for a long time, where it's not just illegal immigrants that partake in this, right? Those who come here legally, literally from all over the world, they will literally come to America just to have their child born here and become an American citizen, and then they'll take their child back to China or whatever country that they came from, right? That's what they'll do. So once again, that puts an end to all of this. How can anyone in their right mind think and feel that that's okay for people of other nations? And this is, once again, we're not talking about illegal immigrants anymore. We're just talking about those who come here legally. So you have a family who comes here legally, and you're just allowed to give birth here, and your child just becomes a citizen, and then you fly back off to Iran, right? You fly back off to wherever you came from. Excuse me? How is that right? It's not. It's just common sense. Now let's carry on. Where was I at? Scope of decision. The Supreme Court did not rule on whether or not the order itself is constitutional or not. Instead, it limited judicial reach, saying courts should only enjoin government actions for specific plaintiffs, not universally. Majority opinion authored by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. The opinion emphasized that legal relief must adhere to who has standing. Nationwide injunctions, she noted, have no grounding in the Judiciary Act of 1789. Dissenting views. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Who cares what they think? Let's move on. I really don't care what they have to say because we all know it's foolishness. We don't have to read what Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, women who don't know what a woman is, have to say. If you can't tell me what a woman is, I'm not really interested in anything else that you're talking about, if I can be completely frank. But in a nutshell, yes, currently as it stands, as we speak, birthright citizenship is over. So we have right now our DNC lunatics all across blue states breaking their neck right now, making phone calls, filing paperwork, and just bending over backwards in order to make sure that they can still maintain birthright citizenship in their specific state. But then here's where the confusion begins to lie. The same way that I can buy a certain type of firearm in Texas, right? I can purchase a certain type of firearm in Texas, completely legal, got my permit, so on and so forth. I can have that there, but I can't cross over state lines in California with it because that same firearm is not legal in California, right? And that permit doesn't transfer to California. So now with that being said, if you're born in California, because we're ran by DNC lunatics, so birthright citizenship still stands here. They filed the necessary paperwork and did whatever lawsuits they have to do to make sure it stands here. Does the citizenship of that child transfer over to Texas? Or are you just restricted here as it pertains to being a citizen in California? It's very interesting. I don't know how this is all going to work out. So while Democrats are currently scrambling, trying to figure things out, shuffling through paperwork, making their phone calls, trying to file lawsuits, so on and so forth, to see what they can do to stop things, slow it down, make sure that it's legal, at least in blue states, it appears that there's going to be a little confusion in the early stages of how all this actually works, right? And that's what they're going to discuss here in this MSNBC video that I'm going to play next. So let's enjoy, some tears. There's going to be a little bit more tears in this video too, as we listen to their confusion through frustration. So let's get into this MSNBC video now.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Lisa Rubin. You just pulled it up. What are we learning?
We're learning today that the court, by a 6-3 majority, Anna, has decided to stay the injunctions partially. They're saying that they will grant the government's application for stays, but only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff withstanding to sue. And let me go back a second, zoom out for a second if I can. One of the questions here was, if the court was going to stay these injunctions, how were they going to do it? Were they going to say that each injunction could only apply in the district where it was entered? In two cases here, those districts were actually statewide, the District of New Jersey, the District of Massachusetts. But the other question was, or could you limit it to just the plaintiffs in these particular cases? Remember that 2 of these 3 cases are brought by states. So how this changes that result, what does it mean then when the individual plaintiffs who have standing to sue are states? Does that mean that we're going to get sort of a patchwork result, as one of the attorneys general, Matt Platkin of New Jersey, described to me in an interview earlier this year? Does that mean that citizenship could be conferred solely by an accident of birth? And he described to me a situation where a citizen or a resident of his state gives birth over a state line in Pennsylvania, for example. What happens if a New Jersey resident gives birth in Pennsylvania? New Jersey is a plaintiff to these cases. Pennsylvania is not. If the child to 2 undocumented immigrants is born in Pennsylvania, what is the result with respect to that person's citizenship? These are a bunch of questions that are now going to result. But at the very least, we are going to see a circumstance where the president's executive order curtailing birthright citizenship is going to effectively be allowed to be implemented in certain states, but not in others.
So that's where the confusion's gonna kind of start to lie, and we're gonna have to figure these things out, right? Just like I can't cross state lines with certain firearms that I might buy in Texas and bring them here to California. Does your citizenship, are you able to cross state lines with that? Can you take that from California to Arizona and your citizenship is still honored? Or, will ICE be waiting for you once you cross state lines? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Things are going to get most likely a lot more confusing too. But the only thing that matters is that right now in this moment, birthright citizenship is over. But I mean, once again, Trump's being reasonable. Only one parent has to be a citizen. Only one parent. That just makes logical sense. Let's get into what Trump had to say next. I want to play this clip where Trump took a moment to speak on this monumental, groundbreaking decision that came down from the Supreme Court. Man, shout out to the Supreme Court for doing the right thing.
Some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country. on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision.
So once again, this isn't just a ruling, right? Let me take this down and put this back on the screen. That's just kind of in favor of birthright citizenship. But when you unpack it, let me zoom in here. We're talking about ending birthright citizenship, ending funding for sanctuary cities, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary federal funding, stopping taxpayer funds for trans surgeries. So I want to highlight that area right here, ending funding for sanctuary cities. Scrambling. Democrats are scrambling right now, scrambling. So now as we close this video out, I just want to put a little icing on this cake here, right? I want to put a little icing on this cake. TD, what do you mean by that? Did you guys hear about this? Look at this here. Give me just a second. Boom. Guess who's going to the Sudan? Guess who's going to the Sudan? Federal prosecutors tell judge they will deport Kilmar Abrigo Garcia to a third country after detention. Okay. I guess you can't go back to El Salvador. I guess we can't send you over there. You definitely can't stay here. But the Sudan is willing to take you, my friend. The Sudan is ready and willing to take you in. We're not going to get too deep into this, man, but look, federal prosecutors on Thursday told the judge that the Trump administration will begin removal proceedings against Kilmar Abrigo Garcia to deport him a country other than his native El Salvador if he is released from a Tennessee jail. So currently, right now, he's in Tennessee jail. If he's released from Tennessee jail, we're going to snatch him up immediately and off to the Sudan you go, my friend. Okay. Either way this works out, either way this goes, either you're going to spend a significant amount of time in jail when you get found guilty, because I believe that he will get found guilty on those, I believe it's trafficking charges. And you're never going to step foot or walk around on American soil again. If you're going to walk around on any soil, it might not be American soil, might not be El Salvadorian soil, but it'll most likely be Sudanese soil. Okay. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. Shout out to the Sudan. Thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media outlet. And also do not forget to follow me on Telegram. That is extremely important. The Telegram link is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.